Welcome back to another episode of the Coaching Cast, which is where myself and my client Martina Kelades of Life Out Loud Business Consulting record her coaching sessions for her podcast. And she's very brave to do so, but she's all about vulnerability and mental health and wellness. So this is an opportunity for her to walk the walk. And it's an opportunity for you to see what happens in a coaching session. And not only just what happens in a session, but also what happens through the duration of a coaching relationship, because this is something that we're doing monthly and releasing for you all. So if you would like to listen to the audio version of this episode, this coaching session, you can find that at the Life Out Loud podcast, which is anywhere podcasts are aired, or you can stick around and watch the video version here on my YouTube channel. And if you like what you see and you're interested in getting some coaching for yourself, then I'd love to hear from you. We can discuss how I can be of service to you. And you can reach me by dropping a comment below. You can find me on Instagram at Mischaela Coaching, on Facebook, Mischaela Coaching, or at my website at mischaelarichter.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to connect and just see, like I said, how we could work together, how I could be of service to you. So without any further ado, I am going to turn it over to the coaching cast.
Okay guys, here we are. We have made it back again to another, what we call a coaching cast. So this is another coaching cast with my life coach, Mischaela Richter. And you guys can find her online at mischaelarichter.com and Mischaela Richter Coaching on Instagram. And I will make
Mischaela Coaching.
Mischaela Coaching, my bad. See, thank you for that. Should have
gotta get that promo right.
Girl, listen, I hear you.
Get those followers.
Yes, so Mischaela Coaching on Instagram. And I'll make sure that I leave your information in the show notes so that people can find you directly there and connect with you there.
Wonderful.
All right, here we go. Welcome back. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be back.
It's great to have you back.
Yeah, so are you ready for another session?
I'm ready, yeah. And just for our listeners, we just had a very brief conversation before recording about how it feels just a little bit less fearful, maybe?
A little easier.
A little easier.
Yeah.
The second coaching cast, the first one was like, I think eye-opening for both of us, because we had the idea, we talked about the idea, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. It's going to be so easy. It's just going to be like a regular coaching session with mics and with my producer. And then we get into space and I'm like, oh.
There's a different dynamic here.
There is, yeah. And after listening to that episode after, it's like, I didn't hear the fear.
Mm-mm.
It was very strange, because I think I definitely felt it in the moment, but listening back, I didn't hear it. So,
which is an interesting concept in itself.
Yeah.
Like what we project or what we think we're projecting isn't always what is perceived.
Well, that's right. And for one to experience both sides of that is quite interesting as well, because a lot of times, like especially my very first episode doing it scared, I had a lot of people say, it didn't even sound like you were scared, but I didn't actually reflect on that myself if I thought I sounded like I was fearful. So it was very interesting, like in the coaching cast, to have experienced it while we were recording, but then also listening after and thinking,
that was fine. That was great.
What are you so worried about?
So we got one under our belt.
We got one under the belt, and I think that's kind of what brought us back to the second one. We're like, let's try it out. Let's see how it works. And I think it takes a little bit of pressure off too. Instead of saying, this is what we're going to do, let's try it first and then see how we will move forward with doing coaching sessions. So here we are again.
Here we are.
Yeah. So just before we dive in, I just kind of wanted to just share with you that I just feel like today I really need to talk about self-care. And how I can work to design I don't want to say like a foolproof self-care strategy, but just design an effective self-care strategy. I'm finding the more that I'm diving into the creative space within my business, the more I'm spending my mental, emotional energy, especially given the topics that I've shared over the last several weeks. I've talked about this on the last episode, talking about fear, talking about vulnerability, which is heavy in itself, talking about courage, that I'm just feeling that maybe I'm not replenishing enough. And I think that also leads to not feeling as productive within my business hours. And I could be totally mistaken too, but this is just kind of, as I'm reflecting on what I want to work on in this session, that's basically what has come up for me. And I know we've talked a lot about self-care, and sometimes I do beat myself up about it. And especially
up once or twice.
just a couple of times. And I do beat myself up about it, and sometimes I'm just not feeling as solid in this area of care as I feel like I should be at this. I just shot myself again. I did it. See, I caught myself.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah, and I think I'm just not feeling solid because I'm just like, I've talked about this so many times and so often, and why haven't I gotten it at this point? So it's just another area in my life that I feel is constantly shifting. I know we talked about shifting, foundation shifting in our last session. So I just sometimes feel like I've lost my tools, or my tools are just scattered. I need to organize my tools.
Organize that tool kit.
That just came to me. So like I haven't lost them. They're misplaced, or they're kind of hidden, and I just feel like they're scattered. So especially, and I have thought about this, especially now since life is starting to get busy again. We're returning to somewhat more of a quote unquote normal or regular life. Things reopening. It's just, I find it's becoming even harder to maintain self-care. So girl, that is where I'm at.
That's where you're
Fix
at.
me.
Okay. Well, that's not my job. But I'll partner with you in finding a solution. So before we get into the topic you're bringing in today, I just wanted to touch quickly on what we had discussed last session, which was, as you mentioned, those shifting foundations. We came up with that metaphor of the river versus the tube. And I believe what we had left off for homework was just being where you are, going with the flow. So how has that gone for you since we last spoke?
Teacher, why do you have to bring homework? I feel like the child that's like in school and
put you on the spot.
You didn't do your homework. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Not that I didn't do it. You know what I forgot to do with my homework is I forgot to schedule the pause. And I think that was kind of my downfall because I wasn't providing myself with the space to pause and to be where I was at. And I think that's why I'm just like, like I can't keep continuing on. Like this isn't going to maintain itself. Like I need to do more action in this area. And so
and create a little more structure around that action.
More structure. Yeah.
And that feels like it kind of ties into what you want to discuss today as well.
Yes.
When it comes to taking that pause and checking in with yourself and seeing where you're at.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
Just give me a second if you want to write something down there. The other thing I wanted to mention, so in terms of the structure, we can be a little more clear on what that looks like at the end of this session today, and maybe even design some accountability around that so that I can help you assist you with staying accountable to the agreements you make for yourself.
Yeah, I love that.
Wonderful. That's what I'm here to do.
Okay, wonderful.
The other thing I wanted to mention, when you talked about self-care, you brought up that topic. You're like, we're here again. I can't believe we're talking about it again. And this is something that comes up often with clients, is like, there's generally an area of work that we keep coming back to, because that's your area of work. That's the big work that you're doing in this life, right? And so when you're returning back to it, it's not necessarily that you're returning back to it in the same way. It's generally there's like a new layer of it, or your life has shifted around you and there's a new angle to come at it from.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
What does that bring up?
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that makes so much sense, because I always talk about how self-care is not just a thing we do. It's not just an activity. Like in your video, how did you say, bath the mask? I think that
you gotta put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
You were talking about like self-care in your self-care video. You said something about it's not just bath and masks or something.
Bubble baths
and face masks. That's it. And it just it reminded me. It's like, yeah, it's not, and so it's a practice, and so in knowing that it's a practice and understanding how we become stronger in certain areas, we have to continue to do it. And that means in the face of different obstacles or challenges in life that we have to continue to revisit those things.
You got it. I feel like the wheels are turning there.
Yeah. Because I think maybe in understanding that it's a practice, I think I've also just realized that self-care is kind of like this overarching practice over everything that I do in my life. And it's not. I think maybe even it has to make sense within each area of my life.
Yeah. Like when you were saying overarching, I was picturing instead like interwoven.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like instead of being this sort of thing looming over everything.
Yeah.
Which is how I interpreted that when you said it. Instead, just it's like a fiber that can be woven through every aspect of your life, whether it's your personal life, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your work life. Like a self-care practice needs to be a part of all of that.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
And I guess in saying that too, there are different demands on us within all of those different areas in our lives as well. So we need to respond in a way that is aligned with that area. Does that make sense? I don't know, like
yeah, like there's different ways it will show up. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like I'm just trying to think of an example here. So let's just say I'm really like, let's say I'm on the go a lot, and I'm running here, I'm running there, doing all these things, using a lot of my physical energy. I'm working out more. Perhaps a self-care response would be that I need to sleep more, I need to rest more, looking at some of the physical responses to those demands. Whereas like in my work, and this is kind of why this has come up today, is that I'm feeling I'm sharing so much and I'm feeling mentally exhausted. So perhaps a response, one of the many responses that I could use is like meditation and just being silent or writing, journaling to reflect on, where I'm at.
Yeah, so you're speaking to, there can be physical self-care, there can be mental self-care, there can be emotional self-care, there can be spiritual self-care, right?
Yeah.
And you know how I love to talk about the energy bar.
Oh, yes. Love that energy bar, though. It's a great visual.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And just quickly for your listeners, imagine that on your forearm you have a bar that goes from red up to yellow up to green at the top, measuring your energy level. It's like you're on your phone. And when we're in the green zone, we feel very energized and alive and excited and on all levels, all of those 4 levels that I spoke of, you just feel sort of at max energy, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And as that drops, as we move into the yellow or the red zone, just as your energy level drops, that's going to impact you mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So it's so important to have that pause, to do that check-in and see where, you know, which of those tanks are getting low.
Right.
And how do I know? Right? What are the signs that it's dropping? And what are the ways that you recharge that battery? So it's a lot easier to bring yourself back up to the green from the yellow than it is from the red, right?
Listen, yes, you are absolutely right.
So the thing is, we want to catch ourselves when we start to feel that little dip into the yellow zone.
Yeah.
So anything to say in response to that?
I think just, excuse me, I think the work I need to do around that is reframing the yellow zone even, because I don't know if I should say this on the recording, but okay, so think of it like driving. So it's green, we're approaching the intersection, it turns yellow. What do most of us do? I'm not
Speed
just
up.
gonna that's why I'm like,
Speaking for myself.
I'm not just gonna incriminate myself here. But I mean, it depends, depending on how far or close you are to the intersection. I think most of us would probably continue through.
Yeah.
And if there's like, if I'm like, no, it's not safe to do so, then of course we stop.
Yeah. We understand you're a good person.
Hope I don't have to do a driving test. But it kind of reminds me of that. So when I'm in a place where I'm feeling yellow, or I know that there's a shift. I know that I'm, you know, using some of that energy. I'm coming into the middle space, the yellow space. I'm like, okay, I've got a little bit more left to give, you know? So I'm going to keep going. And then it's like, oh, well, shoot, how did I get all the way in the red? And now it's like, oh, it's just going to be so much work to get back up to the green. So that's kind of like, that's the area of work I think I need to kind of focus on too, is just reframing that zone.
Yeah, yellow doesn't mean put the pedal to the metal. Is that what we're learning from this conversation? Is that really? That's not how it works. Oh, yellow means stop.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Caution.
Stop.
Yeah, and stop. Prepare to stop.
Yes, that's brilliant.
Let's say prepare to pause. Because I don't want to stop. I
No.
mean, eventually.
I mean, you're going to have to if you get in the red zone for too long. Like, you know, it's going to put you to a stop whether you want it or not.
That's right.
So,
what's that quote? I was sharing this on another podcast with someone. I couldn't even remember it, and I meant to look it up after, and I forgot. But if you don't make time for your wellness, then you'll be forced to make time for your illness or something.
That's good.
Have you seen that?
No, but that's...
quote? I've seen it floating around on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's just, that was powerful. Because it's so true. So, yeah, as you said that, I was like, yeah, that's a quote.
So what's becoming clear to you so far in this conversation?
Well, I think one of my issues is that I'm not creating capacity to one, reflect on this and be aware of how it's having an impact on my wellness, and two, that I think I need to have another look at how I see that zone and how I can create space.
And that's what I'm really curious. I'm really curious about the part where, you know, you see that yellow light and you're like, all right, there's a little bit left, let's go. And I think we mentioned this last time, but it brings up that image of your inner, like, Wonder Woman superhero, be all things to all people, do everything expected of me, do all the things I expect of me.
Right.
I wonder if there's shades of her here. And I don't have to be right. What do you think?
Well, I think she definitely pops in here and there. Hello, are you still working? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job.
Right? She's got a lot of expectations.
She does. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I know I have a lot of expectations that I place on myself. Sometimes a lot of unrealistic expectations. I know that certainly exists. I've become better with seeing it, acknowledging it, and working through it since like, let's say even our first few sessions. So I'm proud of that. However, yeah, it still happens. Still happens.
And you know, as we evolve and grow, our saboteurs grow and evolve with us.
They do.
Yeah.
Who gave them permission to grow? I'm not giving them permission to grow with me.
They do. They get sneakier. They do.
Oh my gosh,
So,
they get sneakier.
because this is a part of your own mind, right? And so you are growing and evolving and learning. Okay, that's the way that I'm behaving when I'm feeling like I'm not doing enough. I need to address that and work with it. However, that's still a part of you. The like, I'm not doing enough part, right? It's part of most of us.
Right.
And
pay attention, everyone.
And so the more you notice it, the sneakier it tries to become. So it might show up in ways that aren't as obvious. Sounds like that might be what's happening here.
Yeah,
what do you think?
perhaps. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So it's like when you feel like, oh, I'm starting to lose some steam here, but I'm just gonna, power through and do the thing because I have this deadline that I set for myself.
Yeah.
And that's that's her. I forget what we called her. What do you want to call her? Yeah, we'll call her Superwoman.
Yeah.
So Superwoman's like, you got a little more left in the tank, kid. Power through.
Power through. Get your cape back on.
And what's her job? Like, what does she think her role is for you?
She may think that she is a motivator.
Sneaky.
She may think that.
Yeah.
And perhaps she is that on a certain level. Maybe she thinks that she is someone who needs to bring things to my attention. Things that she probably thinks I miss.
So yeah, she's like, look over here, this is important.
Yeah. While you're looking over there, look over there.
Yeah, look at
that's
both
also
places
important.
at the same time.
Oh yeah, and then look behind you and all the things that you didn't do.
Right.
And look in front of you to the things that you have no idea what's about to happen.
Right.
Look in front of you to the uncertainty that exists ahead.
And what's the impact of that on you?
What, looking ahead?
Just looking everywhere.
Just looking everywhere? Oh, you're just all over the place.
Yeah.
You're confused, distracted, overwhelmed, scared, feeling out of control because everything is scattered.
Right. So Superwoman's trying to make sure you're on top of all your shit. And in doing so is making you feel out of control and scattered.
Now just have a seat, would you? That's what I want to tell her.
Right? Yeah. And, a little bit of what she's doing can be helpful. Like, hey, just making sure you haven't forgotten this and you can do it, right? Like the motivation and the keeping you on top of things aspects are useful in doses. And being aware of her, sort of extracting her from you for a moment in order to be able to observe that behavior that she's creating, allows you to have a bit more of a choice, right? That's the pause. That's the check-in. Like, okay, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed and scattered.
Yeah.
She's telling me there's all this stuff I got to do. Well, let me just pause here and check in.
And it's like I make the final decision. I hired you to work for me.
Yeah, right?
You bring to the table what you think is best for me,
Yes.
and I make the final decision on a move forward.
Yeah, and when we say I, we're talking about like your highest self, like the core part of you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That Naya.
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful. Strong.
Right?
Resilient.
Yeah.
Yeah. This actually reminds me of the Dearest Fear letter that Elizabeth Gilbert wrote in her book Big Magic.
I have it downloaded and I haven't started it yet.
The book?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to read it again because it's been such an instrumental resource on my whole creative journey, like even before starting Life Out Loud. And yeah, she just addresses fear in a way. It's like not dismissing it or removing fear, because I think so many times like we want to get rid of it because it's uncomfortable and it's scary and it's all these things that we don't want to experience. But instead it's like allowing it to be in the space, allowing it to be in the car, the vehicle, on the journey, but you are not to touch the wheel.
Yes.
You know? And so that's kind of what I was thinking of as you were saying that.
Well, you know, I'm sure I've shared the analogy, the bus analogy with you, right? Where we have all these parts of ourselves on the bus, but same thing, you get to choose who goes behind the wheel, right? So it's not about being, you know, mad at your saboteurs or dismissing them, like you said, like these fearful, overprotective parts of ourselves. It's about having some compassion for them. It makes me think of Brene Brown and brave leadership, right? Like, brave leadership versus armored leadership. Like, hey, you know, I appreciate the work you've done here and what you're bringing to the table. And like this part isn't useful. This part is, right? So compassionate leadership.
Yeah.
Right? So the you that you would prefer to have behind the wheel gets to be a compassionate leader to all these other parts of yourself that may not serve you in that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you've always taught me to interview these. I call them gremlins, or the saboteurs, and and I think that's the only way to have understanding around why these things show up and how, you know, we can look at ways that they're useful and ways that they don't serve us.
Yeah, and so, you know, we started this conversation talking about self-care, and we've discovered that Superwoman is getting in the way of some. She's one reason why the self-care isn't happening to the level you would prefer. So, given what we've talked about here, how will you manage that? What's new here?
Well, what's new is the awareness. I think it's looking at the root as to why it hasn't been so easy to work on the care piece, because I'm not allowing myself to slow down. And I do in moments, and then sometimes it's like I feel like I don't allow myself to slow down in the moments that I most need it. Like on the weekend, I can take a Sunday morning and dive into a book and, you know, enjoy a tea and relax. And that's wonderful. That's great. But it's like it's through the week where it's my busier time and there's more demands on my time. And so I think those are the moments I really need to focus on, pausing. Oh, one thing I did. Oh, you'll be happy to hear this. I created a little message in my inbox. You can pause your inbox. Do you know you can do that on Gmail?
No.
Yeah, you can pause your inbox, and I put a little message that like, this is my productive time right now, and it may be, you know, a few hours before I respond, or a day or so before I respond to emails. That's been helpful because I think it minimizes the emails that also come through.
Right.
So I've noticed less emails coming through during those periods of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I guess that's one thing.
Yeah.
That's my homework. That's what I did.
There you go.
But yeah, still, you know, just even in addition to like those kind of actions, just even thinking about how much time I'm spending with work, because I'm still like, oh, I can just keep working, or I can just not set an end time for work in the run of a day. Like, it'll just be open and fluid. So I'll work and then I'll stop, and then like for bed I'll work on something else, or, you know. So I think like creating boundaries around my work schedule so probably might be helpful.
You don't sound convinced.
Probably might be. Oh my gosh, I just did that. Probably
you
might
lost,
be.
That sentence lost steam all the way to the end. Yeah, what's the doubt
And
there?
then the probably might be like slow. I'm looking for you for confirmation.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, what's the doubt in that statement for you?
You know what? I don't even know. I feel like it's just, it almost sounds like I'm half-ass committed to even trying. I think that's what it is. I don't know if I doubt that it would be helpful, because I think it would be, but it's like, okay, you're saying it, so now you've got to put it into action. If
You
think
didn't want to fully say it. You're like, I don't want to put this out there on air.
Oh, the commitment phobia.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Like, what might boundaries look like on your time? If you're willing, if you're ready to talk about it.
Anyone else in the room want to take this question? Oh, yes, I think I could definitely like set more solid work schedules.
It's really hard for you to say that.
I don't know why. I just don't know why. I think it's like, okay, but what if I needed to do something and I'm like, sorry, I can't, because it's outside of my working hours. But I need to.
Is that Superwoman talking?
Let me ask.
Check in.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is. I'm truly curious.
I think maybe she's even giving like a gentle reminder of how useful it would be. That if I create not like, okay, let me rephrase that. I think this is coming up because perhaps she's saying that it's important to set these boundaries and I need to do it. I know I need to do this. I just haven't made it a habit. Like right from the get, I haven't made it a habit. So that's why I think it's really hard for me right now. But I definitely think there's value in doing it, and I think that I could probably even be more, I could be more productive within those hours.
And say as much on this as you'd like, but are we talking about you doing work for your business, or are we talking about being of service to others? When we talk about doing work outside of those boundaries, those hours that we're setting.
I guess both. And we've often talked about the working on the business and working in the business. And I think maybe even clarifying how much time for each, because I don't allot time. It's just whatever comes up. That's what I'm kind of executing, and that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm doing. That's where I'm going. Wherever. And that's more. I do respond, or I do work a lot from a reactive state. I think we talked about this last time. It's like I keep doing because things keep coming up, but I'm not also spending time in the being. So if I designate specific time, that's like, no, this is for the service, and this is for the working on. Yeah, I don't know why I get so confused with those two. Like, is it on or in? On? Yeah. So that might also be a good place to look and start, creating.
So what might that look like? Like, this is a period of time where I'm going to work on the business, like let's say it's this day or this time of day, and then this over here is the time where I'm working in the business. Is that, just to be clear, is that what we're saying?
That's right. But also sticking to that plan, because I've been doing that. Like, if you look at my calendar, I'll have written business day. So if meetings have to happen, they can happen on those days.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have days where it's like I write no meetings. And sometimes I've even written on the week no meetings, because I know that I'm feeling like overworked or I'm trying to catch up on things, and so I need that space, that time to do those things. And then I knew that was the next question. Not always. That's the issue. And I think it's because I'm trying to accommodate. I'm trying to make things work. Like with
hands
did I just do that?
Yeah.
I am here to
accommodate. Superwoman. Hands going down.
I wish you guys could see this. Actually, if you tune into Mischaela's YouTube video, you'll probably catch that action of me just placing my hands on my hips as I'm saying, I am here to accommodate.
That's perfect.
Oh my gosh. I did pick up
sneaky.
on it. You mirrored it, and I was like, oh, I did that. See? She is sneaky. She is sneaky.
That's what I'm telling you. Right? So there's a few things that are coming to mind here. One is, yes, it's good to have boundaries. It's good to have some clarity and structure to your week. And as we discussed last time, sometimes, we need to be able to go with the flow, right? And not have things be too rigid, right?
Yes.
So what comes up for me is, as we talk about this energy bar and the dip, right? We got into the part where you pause and you check in, and that can serve you in these moments where, Superwoman's coming to the rescue. And you need to check in and be like, is this, am I willing to sacrifice my boundaries right now, or compromise my boundaries? Am I willing to sacrifice my me time for whatever this issue is? Will it deplete me? Do I have enough gas in the tank for this? Right? So that's where the check-in can serve you. And there's also like the recharge aspect, which we haven't really discussed yet.
Yeah. It's the next phase.
Yeah. So before we move on to the recharge phase, like, what do you have to say here about sort of rigidity versus flow and checking in?
I think I find like sometimes I'm rigid in certain aspects, and then sometimes I'm too much flow. And I think the too much flow comes from not, saying no to things that I know I need to say no to. When I say no, how is this serving me? I say yes.
Yeah.
How is it not serving me or serving me?
Yeah.
So like doing that kind of evaluation, I just need to like, so I wish I could just pinpoint it like in every aspect of me accepting certain things in my business or doing certain things. Like I wish I could just actually see it in the moment.
When do you see it?
After the fact, when I'm like, oh man, why did I say yes to this task or meeting? Like,
yeah. And that's why I bring up Superwoman, because these are unconscious patterns of behavior, right? The saying yes is a long running pattern, right?
The people pleasing pattern.
Yeah.
The PPP.
Damn PPP.
Right.
So the more we discuss this and the more we're bringing her into the light and up into your consciousness, the more you can develop your ability to be aware of that, right? So that really is the big practice, is recognizing when you're just saying the automatic yes.
So
versus pausing, giving yourself a little bit of space to consider if this fits right now.
So working in more intentional ways and giving myself more time and space to respond instead of just
yes. Yes, I'll help you.
Oh my gosh, we might have to start doing videos like a live video. Because that is it, that response right there, that was it.
I know you.
Folks, this is why it's good to have a coach that you worked with for so long, because they really do get to learn your little tricks and habits. Yeah, that's it.
And you know, and maybe things, you know, this is something that comes up often with clients, and creating that space could be something like, you know, that sounds like something I'd be interested in, but I have to check my schedule to see if it works, to make sure I can give this the proper time it needs. You know, something along those lines. I want to make sure that I have the time to do this properly.
Yeah.
Whatever, but you come up with, even just have, you know, a few pre-prepared sentences that give you that space that you can whip out in the moment.
I like that. I like that. I just made a note of that. Because I'm going to actually like think about how I would respond. We did this actually with boundary setting when you challenged me to look at ways of saying no.
Yeah.
Instead of just no.
Yeah.
Because who wants to say no?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know I don't like hearing no. So saying it is, But what are some other ways that we can decline a request? Yeah.
And even if it doesn't end up in a decline, it's just about the creating the space for you to check in. Right? You might end up saying yes. You might end up saying no. Who knows? Unless you have the time to check your schedule and see if it's going to really work for you right now.
Right. Yeah. That's so important.
And it gives you a second to notice Superwoman. Right?
Yeah. Whew.
Let's hear for you.
A lot of homework.
Yeah, I wish, I'd love for us to come up with some sort of structure to help you really recognize Superwoman. Like, I wonder how we can bring her out of the shadows even more. Bring her forward into your awareness.
And maybe it's, I know in the beginning I did say that I'm really looking at how to create a design, and maybe that's not the action, or maybe that's not the result today. Maybe you're right, maybe it is about the awareness. And looking at, from now until the next session, really identifying the behaviors that kind of are bringing me to this point where I'm feeling just so exhausted and not feeling confident enough to set some boundaries around things that I need to set boundaries around.
Yeah, well, if there's one thing I know about you is that you often have a very full plate. And that full plate is exhausting you. And the reason you have that full plate is because Superwoman's at the wheel, saying yes to everything. I'm making all that up, but you tell me what feels true there for you.
I'm here to accommodate. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And the hardest part about all of that is that I enjoy like meeting people. I enjoy like doing all these things. And I think that can be the hardest part in saying no, because I love to go to coffee with you. Absolutely. And talk for hours, 2 hours. Sure. Yeah, that's what I do. I love that. But is it the best use of my time? Is it even something that's, you know, now I'm just like, I was going to say, is it something that is working towards, or is it moving me towards my goals in business? And then I just said to myself, that's selfish. You know what I mean?
Superwoman.
Do you feel like that in your business? Can
No.
I just ask that question? No?
I've gotten really good at the clear no.
Yeah? But do you ever feel like offering something to someone, if it's not serving your work and serving you in your business, that you don't do it?
I offer complimentary conversations with clients, with people who might become clients, And there truly isn't an expectation that they become a client,
Right.
but I'm willing to do that because A, it might help get them a little bit of clarity from the discussion we have, and B, it could turn into a client that's going to pay me, right? So, and there's a lot that I do that it's not all about money. There's a lot that I do that is for free, but is moving me towards my goals. Like all of the YouTube videos, I put a ton of value out for free all the time, right?
Yeah, true.
So I'm offering value in ways that do also serve me.
So it's a win-win. So sometimes I find myself in situations where, not that I don't find value in it, but I think it's just, I just feel more exhausted.
It feels non-reciprocal, or?
Yeah, non-reciprocal, but also like I feel like depleted. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if that's just because of an accumulation of all the other activities and then that one thing that I didn't feel really helped in any way. But, you know.
There's something about, like, I know that you love to help, right? That's a really driving force behind who you are, is being of service, right?
Right.
And what it sounds like you're talking about is giving a lot of energy that isn't actually creating any kind of change. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? Where sometimes we just pour energy into a black hole.
Right.
It's like, did that change anything? No. Right? So, like, I don't work with clients that aren't willing to do the work, because it's not gonna serve them. It's only gonna deplete me, and no one's gonna be any further ahead, right? So what I'm looking for when I'm doing these complimentary consultations with people is, are they open to this? Are they willing to do the work? That's all.
Right.
But if they're not, then it's a waste of everyone's time and energy. So I guess it's about being really clear on, when are you pouring energy into a black hole versus putting energy into something that has you feel like you've helped, like you've made a difference, because that in itself is going to give you a charge, right? When you're like, I've been helpful. I made a difference here. That can be energizing, I assume.
Yeah.
Do you find that? Yeah.
Absolutely. Writing that question down, because I think that's a good reflective question. To use in that space between responding to requests.
Yeah, so what's the question?
Are you pouring, is this, what did I say? When are you pouring energy into black hole versus something helpful, valuable, and re-energizing? So I could just change it. Are you? But yes.
Because that's the payback we get, right? Energetically. People who are helpers really get like a charge from helping and feeling like it's been useful and valuable in some way. Right? And that's what I mean when I say, like, putting out content that I believe is helpful. Yeah, it's a ton of work to put it together, and it's an offering because I feel it's of value. And I trust that it's being received by someone out there, in a way that's useful for them. And but otherwise, if it's just going into a black void and not being received, it's about that reciprocity. Because the receiving, even without there having to be like a monetary exchange or an exchange of service or anything like that, it's just knowing that there's been an impact.
Right.
Is enough of a, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, like enough of a return. Yeah,
return on investment.
So can you think of some areas where you're pouring energy into black holes, or can you think of examples of that? You don't have to share them with me, but just as you consider that in this moment.
I can definitely think of a couple.
So those are areas to put boundaries around.
Right.
Whether it's you limit it or you remove it, right?
Yeah. Limit or remove.
Depending on what the circumstances are.
How did I know boundaries was coming into this conversation today? Oh, it's so hard sometimes. But that is part of self-care.
It is, right?
The big part, actually, I've come to discover.
And, oh man, have you read Untamed yet by Glennon Doyle?
No.
Ooh.
No.
Put it on the list.
Yeah?
She talks about boundaries, and she talks about having boundaries around a behavior, not a person. Right? So the example she used was like when her and her wife were first together, and everyone was still getting used to the idea, and her mother was fearful for them, right? She's like, I love and accept, you and what you're doing, but I'm just afraid of what other people are going to think. I'm afraid of how this is going to be received, right? And she had to put a boundary around her mom coming to visit. She's like, I can't have you bring your fear here, right? I can't have that fear around our children. I can't have that fear in our space. So until you can come to us without fear, I can't have you here. It wasn't that she had a boundary around her mom, she had a boundary around the fear.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, love you, you're welcome, just
Right.
don't bring the fear.
Right. And I think a lot of the times we do attach that boundary to the person, whether it's us who are setting the boundary or it's us who are on the receiving end of a boundary. Because sometimes we take it personal. Like it's something about us, or we've done something.
And our behaviors don't define us. They can, but they don't have to, right? Our behavior can be changed.
Right.
So it's about sort of detaching the behavior from you or the person, right? And just being like, this is the behavior that I can't accept.
I really like that. Untamed.
Would recommend.
Definitely going to look at that.
Is there more to say on this before we move on to recharging?
No, I think there's still a lot of things I will explore between our sessions around scheduling, around evaluating the energy.
And maybe we can stay here and continue to talk about this and leave recharging for the next talk. How are you feeling about it at this point?
No, we can look at recharging. Yeah.
Because like so far we've gotten really clear on like pausing,
right,
creating space, checking in,
right,
and just knowing like, okay, I'm dipping. I'm in the yellow or I'm in the red. I don't have the capacity. So cool. Now you've recognized that. Now what? Like, how do we get back up to the green?
Yeah. How do we do that?
Well, what do you know? Like, what do you know that recharges you? Whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually.
I know resting. I had a nap yesterday. I was actually really...
I had a nap too.
Did you? And I actually fought it for a little bit. Like in my mind, I kept thinking, well, there she goes again. Why are you going to take an hour to rest when you could get this done? But then my rebuttal was that if I don't take the time now to rest, I'm not getting anything done in this hour. I'm going to waste more time and I'll be working later.
Yep.
So I just
let yourself have it.
Let myself have it. Yeah. And it felt so good.
Right?
Because sometimes I get scared to have naps because maybe it's because I sleep too long. I don't know, but I feel like a little bit cloudy when I wake up, and so I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel like that, so I avoid it. But actually recharged. Yeah.
So resting. What else gets you feeling like
working out? Yeah, I'm just getting back on that train. Listen, during this quarantine season, I fell all the way off the track. I mean, I went for walks and I did things like very low maintenance or low, what would you call it? Yeah, low maintenance workouts. Walking.
Low intensity.
That's the word. I'm like, it's not maintenance.
Yeah. No, I
low intensity workouts. So that was good, but just kind of getting back into like doing more weights or more cardio, sweating. We have a sauna now. So that's been, I'm still working on how I'm going to incorporate it into self-care. Here's my problem with the sauna. So I used it the other day, and it feels good to sweat, like just to allow these, you know, toxins to be released in my body. But when I'm in there, I just get so hyper-focused on the time. It's like, how long have I been in here? And then I'm watching the time. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so hot. Oh, I'm sweating. Oh, now I'm uncomfortable because I'm just paying attention to how much I'm sweating. So this is going to be like, this is going to be an interesting trial to get myself to a place where I can sit in the sauna and just like allow my mind to just be present. So I'm going to try this weekend. I'm going to try putting on a meditation. So just putting my headphones in and just let the meditation guide me to relaxation. Yeah.
Tell me what the experience is for you of being in the green zone.
I feel super energized. I find I go from like really, really high energy, and then I feel like I can do everything, and I'm like making all these plans, and you know, I feel it's super productive. And then the times where I'm just like, maybe I'm revving myself up too much, it starts to kind of dial the meter down quickly.
So it's like,
that's the, yeah.
So it goes, it sort of like burns hot and fast. Yeah. Can you think of an experience where you went into a situation, you're like, oh God, I don't know if I have, like where you went into a situation, you're like, I don't know if I have the energy for this, and then you come out of the situation and you're like, woo! Like you feel alive, charged, excited.
I'd say speaking. Well, clearly I can't speak right now. There is a frog in my throat.
Take care of it.
Yeah, I think when I speak sometimes, like I feel like coming into it that I don't have the energy, and I think that's fear sometimes talking too. It's like, oh, I really don't want to do this, but I gotta do it. And then I do it, and I'm just like, wow, like that's good. I feel really excited. I feel more confident. I feel connected. Energized. Yeah. And then I go into a place later that's like, I don't want to talk to anybody. But it's kind of that balance too, where.
So what you said in there, like connection was the word that came up for me as soon as you said speaking. Like I'm imagining you're connecting with people on a genuine level.
Right.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Right? There's like that authentic connection that's happening. You're having an impact. Like what is it about that really charges you up?
I think it's just that. It's just the connection. I think it's knowing that, and maybe not. It's not even knowing if you made a difference, because it's not even like something I think about. But it's, you know, when you have conversations with people and they've kind of reciprocated and shared some of their own experiences that are similar to what I've talked about or I've shared, like that in itself, because I think it just, you know, reaffirms the fact that I'm not alone, or reaffirms the fact that there's many people out there, many of us out there that are, you know, doing hard work, or that are being vulnerable and, you know, living life intentionally, and are also willing to talk about it. Like that's the stuff that excites me.
So like there's something there about there's authentic connection.
Yeah.
vulnerability, like, you know, getting to that deeper level with people that fuels your fire.
Yeah, it's moving forward in a way that's like think of it like when you're with a client, perhaps myself, and you know, there's many times where I've had like, like that aha moment of, oh my goodness, I didn't think about that. Like, how does that make you feel?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, like it charges me right up.
It charges you.
Yeah, no, and like, you know, I'm sitting here thinking about this. Like, there's so many times where I'm like, oh God, I have a session. Okay, I'm so tired. All right, let's just start. Let's just do it. And by the end of the session, I'm like high kicking. Like, woo! You know, like it just fuels my fire. Like I just feel so much more energized and alive. And so it's about like, how can you recreate that experience, that charge that you're getting from speaking when, let's say, you don't have a speaking engagement set up, right? Like, how do you recreate that magic somehow, right? So that's why I'm trying to extract, like, what are the magical ingredients that are happening there? And it's like authentic connection, inspiration, I don't know, positive growth, like, I don't know, you know, all of these elements are values of yours.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That help recharge you when you honor those values. Right? So it's not necessarily just, it's interesting how our mental state, our mindset really has a huge impact on our physical experience. Right?
And vice versa.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So like it's all connected when I talk with that energy bar, like your mental, your physical, your emotional, your spiritual, all of that is kind of connected. It all goes up and down together. Right? So you can come at it from different directions. You can come at it from resting, you know, physical care. Working out is a physical care thing. Meditation is like a mental care thing. Connection is like an emotional care and mental care thing, right? And yet it impacts all the other levels.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I think like as you were saying that, like, what I may do is try and organize those areas, like how I'm using the different areas, like how I'm connecting spiritually, how I'm connecting mentally, physically, because I think, I know about it, but I don't really see or always know exactly how it's, you know, being manifested in my experiences, or how I'm utilizing those different self-care strategies in those different capacities.
Yeah, so doing a little bit of a deeper look at what really works for you. Right. Yeah.
But
being more intentional.
First identifying. Look at me giving myself homework. That's what I'm gonna.
You're a great client. Doing my job for me.
I'm trying to just get more points.
Yeah. Gold stars everywhere.
Writing that down. Okay.
What are you writing?
Define self-care areas. So when I'm looking at it, I think it's just an awareness piece for me in doing that activity.
Yeah, well, in defining it, then you're able to use it intentionally.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, so like we said, like self-care isn't just face masks and bubble baths. It's it's self-awareness. It's knowing when your energy's dipping and how to bring it back up. Knowing what's going to work specifically for you to recharge your battery.
That's right.
Right. So I'm just noticing the time here. We've got about 10 minutes. What are you taking from this? And what will you do, or how will you be as a result of this conversation?
So, taking a lot of awareness away. I think the thing that speaks most loudly to me is the pause. This pause piece.
That old pause again.
That pause, it's resurfaced. And just I'm actually excited to explore how, as you talked about, like how those fibers are woven throughout my work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in doing that, doing the self-care or defining the self-care areas, I think that will help to see that more clear.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the energy bar, that's a very helpful daily tool that I can use as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just even like asking myself, what do I need?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't ask myself that. And I, you know, if a friend came to me and said, you know, I feel like a lot's going on and just feeling exhausted and overwhelmed, I feel like I would ask them, like, so what do you feel you need?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you need to kind of get back to that place where you feel more energized?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe even asking myself that question.
Mm-hmm.
And letting Superwoman have a seat.
Right.
You're on break right now.
Yeah. Right? Put her on leave. Send her to the back of the bus.
Send her on leave.
Yeah, I mean, this is my contribution, is really noticing her. Like really, really being aware of when you are saying yes automatically and from that Superwoman perspective. You know, so we talked about really like having a few sentences that you can use that will give you some space.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's the other thing I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Circling and starring it.
So let's design some accountability here.
Okay. You know, I like accountability.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I'm agreeing, and I'm just curious. Like, that was my thinking mind kind of taking over there. What could that look like? Like, what is going to be the daily practice here?
For me,
The
gonna
pause.
be the daily practice. Well, I'm gonna keep pausing,
Mm-hmm.
physically pausing
Mm-hmm.
my inbox.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna set a clear daily schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I should write this down so I don't
Mm-hmm.
forget. Oh yeah, it's also recorded. But yes, I'm also gonna write it down. So get clear on my work schedule. And in doing that, I'm going to incorporate breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
If I was working at, you know, a job or working in an office,
There'd be breaks.
I have, designated breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Going your break. So I think doing that will help, because sometimes when I do break, it's like a long break, right? Like get caught up in a spiral of videos online or
Scrolling.
Instagram scrolling, you know. So
Intentional breaks.
intentional breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And so get clear on my schedule, incorporate breaks, intentional breaks. And I want to say, this keeps coming into my mind, and I'm like trying to stuff it. Like, rest when I need to rest.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, but that's not.
But I shouldn't do that.
I shouldn't do that.
You're gonna get it all done. Eventually. It might not be on the timeline that Superwoman wants. But you are somebody who gets stuff done.
Will I?
I think you've proven that to yourself.
Yes, okay. Okay. But just, learn to rest.
Mm-hmm.
I need to rest.
Yeah. So how can I support you with this? Let's start with that schedule. You're gonna make that schedule.
Gotta make the schedule.
You're gonna schedule in breaks. when can you have that schedule clarified for yourself by?
I'm going to do that, well, sooner than later, because the longer I wait, so I will do that within the next day.
Here we are, like, don't put timelines on yourself.
But
so what's the timeline on this, Martina?
It is important, especially that task, because if I don't start doing that, then I'm going to just keep falling back into this.
Well, I'm just remembering how you said last time, you were like, oh, I forgot to do the pauses, right? So how can we make sure that you do the pauses? Like, what would be something we could design here?
Well, in clarifying the work schedule, I'm going to also put it in there, and then I'll put it in my phone.
Nice. So maybe you could like send me a screenshot.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah? Awesome.
I can do that.
So let's say, is by the end of this week possible, or does next week feel?
I can do that.
All right.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So by Friday?
Friday.
All right. I'll look forward to that screenshot.
Gotta do it.
We're making it real. Is there anything else I can do for you between now and next time?
I think this is a good restarting place. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm excited to actually just kind of get back on this track. And next session I'll report on how it's been going, and
we'll check in with Superwoman.
We'll move forward, and Superwoman, see how she's doing. I'm sure she'll be there.
Well, you are a superwoman, Martina, when you think about all that you do. And you're just a pleasure to work with. So,
well, thank you.
Thank you for showing up.
Yeah, thanks you for your guidance today. Really appreciate it.
Truly a pleasure.
Oh, thanks.
All right. Mwah.
Mwah.